Hi everyone. Just wanted to check back in and record a few more math lessons. I want to let you all know that I'm doing well and that I'm healing and that I hope to be back very soon. So for math, you've been working on fractions and multiplication. The last time they wanted us just to draw pictures and then multiply. And today they want you to get into actually multiplying without the pictures, which we've already done. So it should be a fairly easy lesson. One thing I want to point out though, before we actually get into our lesson is something that will help you when you're talking about estimating or figuring out how things will go when you're multiplying fractions. Usually when we multiply, we think of the number getting bigger. When we multiply fractions, our number can get bigger, it can get smaller, or it can stay the same. Now, one thing that staying the same is if you're multiplying by a fraction of 1. So if we had 1/2, and we're going to use 1/2 to help you out here, because a half is something that usually people can't recognize, and we multiply it by a fraction of 3/3, and that would be 1 whole, we would get 3/6. And most of you, if you look on your simplifying chart, or you remember that 3 is half of 6. So that actually stays the same. So if we multiply by 1, it keeps it the same. If we multiply it by a smaller fraction, it's going to make it get smaller. So if we have a half and we multiply it by, let's say, a half, we multiply straight across because remember the bottoms don't have to be the same. 1 times 1 is 1 and 2 times 2 is 4. So 1/4. So if you take a look, if this was half of the square or the rectangle here, drawing with my mouse, here's a half. And I draw the same size and I shade in a 1/4, we can see that that actually gets smaller. So if you multiply by a fraction less than 1, it gets smaller. So then if we multiply by a fraction, Lulu, if you multiply by a fraction that is greater than 1, and that is an improper fraction. So let me do 2 over, actually, let me change that. Let me go 4/3. We would get 4/6. And remember, a half using 6 was 3/6. So it actually got bigger than our fraction. So if we multiply by a fraction bigger than 1 or an improper fraction, we're going to get it to be bigger. So just wanted to point that out to you as we are multiplying. The same goes when we are actually multiplying whole numbers with fractions. So if we multiply the number 2 times a fraction of 1, so let's do 2/2. Now remember, we can put this over 1, and we get 4/2. And 4 divided by 2 equals 2. So that became the same. If we multiply it by a fraction less than 1, so let's say 2 times a half. So a half of 2, you should know, is 1. So we get 2/2, which when we divide that, we get 1. So that one is smaller. And then if we multiply it by a fraction bigger than a whole, so let's do 4/2. We get 8/2, so a bigger than 1 fraction, and 8 divided by 2 is 4, so that number got bigger. So the same thing happens when we're multiplying fractions. So if it's 1, it's going to stay the same. If it's less than 1, a fraction less than 1, it will get smaller, and a bigger fraction, a improper fraction, will get bigger. So just a little hint there as we get multiplying here. So Charlene, this is page 433, chapter 7, lesson 3 in your math book. Fractions and whole number multiplying. Charlene has 5 1-pound bags of sand, each a different color. For an art project, she will use 3/8. So I know my number is going to be less than 5 there. Pounds of each bag of sand, and to create a colorful sand art jar. How much sand will be in the jar? So how much sand is in each bag? So there's 1 pound in each bag. And will she use all of it? No, she's going to use 3/8 of it. So if you see, they have 5 times 3/8 and they're modeling it. So we could do this 3/8. We could color and shade in 3 of those. And then they want us to rearrange it into these pieces so that we can see how much it would be total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's 15/8. Or we have 1 whole and 7 of the 8 colored in. Now, think about this. They are putting this just over 8. So they're saying just multiply the tops and we will get 15/8. And then you can reduce it. And remember to reduce it. It's that division problem. And it's 1. We subtract. Make sure you're using those multiplication charts if you need to. And then the remainder goes on the top and the number on the outside goes on the bottom. So 1 7/8, which is the same way. So let's go ahead and go to the next problem. They're going to keep showing us with the model. We're going to go over here and actually just multiply it. And it doesn't matter if the whole number comes first or the whole number comes second. Remember, multiplication has commutative property. Now, they're saying we can put this as a whole number over 1. So we'll do 2 times 4. And there's nothing to multiply because 3 times 1 would be 1. So we get 8/3. And we divide. 3 goes into 8. This time it's 2. And 3 times 2 is 6. And we get a remainder of 2. Remember, the remainder goes on the top of the fraction. And the outside, the bottom is the outside. So we get 8/3 or 2 2/3. So question down here, what would we have the same amount of bread if we have 4 groups of 2/3 of a loaf? Well, let's try it. 4 times 2/3. Now remember, I like to just put this over 1, then multiply straight across 8/3. Isn't that what we got up there? Yes, because, so this would be a yes. And the reason why it doesn't matter is because of commutative property that flip-flop those factors. As I draw out here with my mouse, commutative property. So let's go ahead and do this. Now let's put this over 1. 4/1. I want you to rewrite them in the box. Times 7/8. And multiply straight across. 4 times 7. Give you some time to look that up. Hopefully you did. It should be 28. And 1 times 8 is 8. Now that's improper, so we can't leave it that way. This is a bigger multiplication problem. Using those multiplication charts to help you out. See how on your H chart how close you can get to 28. Think in your head 8 times what is close to 28 without going over. And I hope you came up with that 24 in your head, which is 3 and 24. And we do 8 minus 4 is 4. And we can make the remainder go on the top and the bottom stay the same. Now I'm hoping you're starting to realize those are both even numbers. That means I can simplify that if you have your simplifying chart. If not, they're over in the basket in the classroom. But I want you to simplify that. And that actually simplifies down to 3½ because we can divide them both by 4. Alrighty, let's do 5/9 times 12/1. 5 times 12, I always think of a clock. How many minutes are in a clock? There's 12 hours on the clock, so we should know that should be 60, right? And then a 9. And divide. 9 times 7 is 63, so that one's too high, so I have to do 9 times 6 is 54. and I subtract, borrow, I get 6. 6/9. Now these are not both even, but it can be simplified because if I think through my six chart, I know 6 I can make with a 2 and a 3, and my brain's going 3 3 3 3 3. I know 9 I can do a 3 and a 3. So to simplify this, I need to divide the top and the bottom by 3. So this is going to be a 2/3. So my whole answer, don't forget about your big number here, your 6, should be 6 2/3. I see that a lot on a test. Kids will simplify and forget to write that. Let's go to 435 and take a look. We're going to do one more together, and then I think you probably have it. If not, there'll be people in there that can help you. So I don't really like to just put it over that number. It would work, but I like to really put 3/1 times 2/5, because when we get multiplying fractions by fractions, we already know are doing it right here. 3 times 2 is 6, and 1 times 5 is 5. Put a 6 and the 5 on the outside. It goes 1 time, and the remainder is 1. Remember that remainder goes on the top of the fraction, and that outside number, or what was the bottom, stays the same. So 1 and 1/5. And that's what you're doing today. Now there's some copy and saves. There's some other things. There's some trickier algebra ones to kind of think through. And I want you to go ahead and try 2 and 3. If you need some help, adults will pull you to help you. And I want you then to finish up this page, to go ahead and do 436. And then you should see that your homework is 437 and 438. They shouldn't take you that long. Let's take a look and go ahead and cross out number 12 for me today. It's asking you to write a word problem, and it doesn't really have a practice there. If you want to write a word problem for me to solve when I get back, I'd love to see that, but not necessary for you to do their practices for today. Hope you had a great day. I hope you have a great day today, and I look forward to checking your Think Central and see how you're doing with multiplying whole numbers and fractions.